Hey there, Heather, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond with the third video in my series, and this time it's the 10 things about the Degrassi shooting you may have known about, or you may not know about, but I will tell you. It's kind of the same video that I did in February, but this time I made a few adjustments. Number one is the big one. The Degrassi shooting was not the season 4 premiere. As I kind of gave a hint to in the first video, was that the first few episodes of season 4 were not Rick centric at all. The first one was a two-parter in which I'll give you the backstory on the B plot. Was that Joey was losing his house, Craig got an inheritance from his late father, and Joey was pressuring Craig to give him money to save his business, but I think Craig didn't back down or something like that. I'm not sure. But anyway, the big story was Paige, because she bumped into Dean at an event, and she still had nightmares about Dean raping her and all that. So Paige decides, after talking to Spinner, to go ahead and do the court case with Dean. Dean's lawyer does everything she can to dissuade Paige and all that, but Paige doesn't really budge that much. Unfortunately, Paige's biggest mistake was the fact that she had basically kept everything to herself. She didn't tell anyone, even Miss Sauve, because that evidence could have helped out, even if it was anonymous and all that. Like what do you call it? The stuff. But anyway, Paige ends up following it up, and it cost her dearly. She decides to crash Dean's car with Spinner's car as revenge. Spinner gets arrested, but Paige decides to take the rap. And she does, and she sees Dean and says that, I'm going to confess. That's what good people do when they do something bad. And in the third episode was when Marco and Alex go head-to-head for the student council seat of presidency. Alex thinks she's going to win because she's a nonconformist, and she has an ace up her sleeve. She wants to out Marco to his parents, because, of course, Marco has kept it in from his mom and dad that he's gay. Marco does come out to his mother, but not his father, because his father basically has this old school philosophy. And I think he does come out eventually to his father. But anyway, Alex decides at the last minute to stop her cause and give Marco a chance to win the election. And Marco wins the election and names Alex his VP, because that's what Marco was allowed to do, his VP, even though Alex wanted to out him. In the B plot, Chris and Emma split up. Emma, unfortunately, isn't too happy about the breakup, such that she tries to prevent Chris from dating Liberty, even though Chris might not have had a chance with Liberty. Unfortunately, Liberty and Manny find out and distance themselves from Emma, which would be a catalyst to a few things. I'll talk about my what-ifs later in the series. Number two is Emma's inability to stay out of it, and a Cutter fan fury. Now, I have a lot of Cutter fan furies and all that, and one fan fury is that when Emma was with the group that included Spinner, Paige, and Alex to get back at Rick with the silent campaign to force him out, they're in trouble. Rick gets tripped up by Emma, and Raj sees it and chews Emma out, but Emma says nobody wants him at the school, and Raj basically says this is not one of your stupid causes. Raj forgot that in season 2, when Emma was talking about genetically modified foods and there was problems, and Raj basically chewed her out for a food fight that she didn't even take part in, Emma decides to give up her genetic modified foods and for a bigger cause, the freedom of speech, and refuses to back down to Raj. Gets suspended for a week, but she keeps everything going. So basically, I think she was pissed off that he would have the gall to call her out. And basically, all that. It might have been subconscious, getting back at Raj. Unfortunately, that campaign ruined Rick, as students took it upon themselves to bully Rick because of this. And it's unclear if that silent protest was what caused Raj to partially get rid of Rick's judgment. Next, number 3 is for all the talk and knowledge I have, and I have researched, I didn't see it first run. The reason was because I was a first-year student in college in 2004 and had to spend my time trying to get a degree in computer programming. which I did, but unfortunately, it took me a couple years longer than I should have. But by 2007, I actually watched it, and I was not happy with a lot of stuff. But as I got older, time grew by, and by 2017, I decided to do some stuff about the shooting on YouTube and all that. I researched to see if someone did a Degrassi shooting video and tech stuff, but I couldn't find one, so I said I'll just jump through there. And I think Not a Vampire, either she had the right idea to do it, but she didn't pull on it, or it was partially because of me that I did it, that she wanted to add in. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not mad at her. If she watched my stuff and wanted to jump on the shooting bandwagon, that's fine by her. Her videos are much better than mine, graphics-wise, of course, too. Next up is the subplot in Time Stands Still. The unfortunate fact that the Joey plot, that Joey has to put his house up on the housing market, and his girlfriend Sydney is willing to put it up there. Caitlin comes back from Europe and saves the house to try to get closer to Joey. That was a good subplot to any episode, but unfortunately it had the audacity to be in the two-parter Time Stands Still. But as Not a Vampire said, she said that it's an example of strange, mundane things happening during major events, because, you know, that was at the same time as the shooting. Number 5 is the Columbine influence. Basically, I kept reading up on things, and it said that the Columbine tragedy in 1999 in Colorado was an inspiration to how students feel about it, the lead up and all that, because the two shooters were basically bullied and all that, and they took their aggression out on people. So they had a consultant who actually worked with Columbine counseling, and they put on a very well done storyline. But as you'll see in number 6, things happen. Number 6 is deleted scenes that stupidly was not in the first run episodes, but can only be seen on the DVD versions or YouTube. The problem is that a lot of deleted scenes sometimes get out that could have led to a big story. A couple of them I saw from the YouTube video, Degrassi season 4 deleted scenes, was, you know, Craig talking to Sean and Toby had the Dungeons and Dragons that role-playing dice that, of course, Toby won thanks to the kissing bet. A few other things. But there were 2 major deleted scenes that should have been in. One was that, remember in Mercy Street, Rick was brought back to school and all that, and before the credits started, Alex and Marco said they'll talk to Radish, and they do. Unfortunately, Radish says his hands are tied, mostly because Rick has not been charged. And of course, that's a big what if. What if Terry's dad actually pressed charges against Rick? Another thing was that it was off-school grounds, so Radish couldn't really do anything. But of course, when I was thinking about that, I didn't think that Rick's parents pulled him out of the school. I thought he was expelled. But no, that's kind of the same thing. But Rick did lose a year, I believe, because he got pulled out of school. He should have been homeschooled, then he would have saved this year. But unfortunately, that's what happened. Unfortunately, Radish says that, and also says that mostly because Terry is not at Degrassi, his hands kind of were tied. Because if Terry was back at Degrassi, I think Radish would have thought twice and thinking, you know, there'd be conflict and all that. But Marco and Alex think that it's basically to do with the academics, but Radish denies it. Basically, Marco says, we're wasting our time. Radish says, I thought you were a smart boy, Marco. And then that's when we got, after the credits rolled, Marco says, I thought you were a smart boy, Marco. And then, of course, in Time Stands Still Part 2, kind of around the time that Spinner and Jimmy were fighting, literally, and between that and when Rick was ready to pull the trigger on Paige, Rick comes back to the school, Spinner sees him, gives him the chicken bite, but unfortunately, he says it in front of Raj, who wants Spinner to come to his office at 3:30 for a serious talk and all that. Raj basically then goes up to Rick and apologizes for everything, basically that he didn't believe in Rick, and says that you can take the rest of the afternoon off until we figure something out. And then Rick says, I have to go to my locker. Okay, but come back, but leave. Now that concerns me, because How did Rick get unnoticed? Then Raj figured it out and said that if you find Rick, when Rich screwed up, and basically saying that, well, he said that Rick should leave. He should have said, if you see Rick, make sure he leaves. Force him to leave. And that could have been an easy thing. But anyway, Snake gets mad at Raj because he figures that Raj is ignoring him and all that. That's the first blow up between those two of them. And Raj basically says, this is not preschool, and making friends is not part of the curriculum. Which probably gets Snake all pissed off and all that. For the big blow up in front of Emma. Regardless. Number 7 is Sean is more of a hero, as we think. Now, we know Sean was a hero for trying to talk down Rick, who had the gun pointing at Emma, and says that, we can work this out. And Rick says, it's too late, I already killed somebody. The two of them wrestle, and of course a gunshot goes off, and we don't know until later that Sean got wounded, but Rick died. I mean, Sean is a big hero for the school. Snake says, I hope you're happy about being a hero and all that. And basically, he says that people like Emma are happy for you because, you saved their lives. Unfortunately, Sean goes back to Wasaga thinking guilty. He finally blurts out his true feelings. He thinks that basically he's not a hero because he killed the boy, even though that was in self-defense. I think he was worried that he was going to get in trouble, but I think he would have been stayed up. Well, anyway, Sean doesn't come back till season 6. Number 8 is JT, Liberty, and Manny didn't have a key moment in the timeline until after the shooting. So basically, a lot of characters were involved in this timeline, but JT, Liberty, and Manny were not really involved with the shooting at any certain point and all that. But on the Monday after the shooting, they interject themselves. Well, JT and Manny, pretty much. Because in Back in Black, when Sean goes back to Wasaga to confront his parents, the subplot was that Toby was upset because everyone will think he's a psycho, because he's friends with a psycho. And JT and Danny, who is Liberty's brother, take advantage of that and basically tell Toby that. Toby then confesses to Manny when Toby's at his locker that basically JT and them hate him because he's friends with Rick, and he figured it out. Manny decides to chew JT out and said that JT was going after Liberty through Danny. And that if he didn't abandon Toby, Toby probably would not have had the sense to go near a psycho. I think Toby kind of knew, but I think Toby thought that Rick had changed. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But Manny does get into JT's head as JT goes to the visitation or the funeral. I don't know what it was. I keep thinking it's visitation. But anyway, he says, it doesn't matter what I thought about Rick. This should never have happened in the first place. Basically, he felt bad for going after Toby when in fact he should never have done that. And Toby accepts his apology. And Liberty doesn't get into the picture until she's head of Dracula with JT, but Mr. Radich decides to put the kibosh on it because of the timing. The timing was wrong. All that. And Liberty and JT tell him that basically it's to help the school heal. I mean, Raj has the right moment. Like, he has the right idea. But unfortunately for him, he went overboard, and his presence over the school was evident when, Liberty wanted, he wanted a musical, and Liberty and JT passed out the Radich's song, and the drama club all balked at it, thinking that they're going to get expelled. So Liberty does, in fact, go after Radich herself. They get money detention to rewrite the musical, and basically, that's when they fell in love with each other. That's another big Degrassi fact, that incident actually helped Gibberty, if you will. That's what they call it, J-I-B-E-R-T-Y. So yeah, JT and Liberty were a power couple. They actually had a kid. But of course, Liberty gave it up because she thought that JT was a terrible father. Would have been, but JT was doing everything, and JT couldn't handle being a father. But it would be apparent that Liberty, we'll make it number 9, is Gibberty. And the fact of the matter is that Liberty still had feelings about kids because JT's next relationship was with Mia, who had a 2-year-old named Isabella. And Liberty was making all these negative statements about JT having an idea about a nursery and all that. And JT thought that Liberty was just being petty because, you know, she had to give up her baby and all that. Unfortunately, that led to JT being shot to death. JT was still thinking about Liberty while being with Mia. And lastly is the biggest mistake I think CTV made. Well, of course, CTV is the Canadian rights holder to Degrassi, and the N, or Nickelodeon, was for the United States. But anyway, Emma's PTSD and the lack of capitalization to talk about it. Now, of course, Emma having the gun in her face brought a lot of bad things to her. And basically, in secret, it's revealed that she still hasn't completely gotten over the shooting. She basically tells people she's fine because she doesn't want to admit that she's got problems. And Jay helps her out at the ravine in a negative way. Unfortunately, Jay takes advantage of it. Emma actually realized when she had gonorrhea and had a decent director performance that she did need help. So basically, she got the help she needed, but off screen. The biggest problem was that when Ellie had problems dealing with her father being away in the military and her mother just giving up on life as is, you know, she started to cut herself, and Miss Sauve forced her into therapy. And the first session, Ellie doesn't really talk much, but Miss Sauve understands all that. If we had a scene like that, it would have been nice for Emma basically even to say a few words about how the shooting affected her to Miss Sauve or to a psychiatrist. That would have been great, knowing that Emma got the help she needed. There's no sense in hiding it. And also, because not many shows at that time on both sides of the border talked about PTSD. That could have been a learning tool, but they fucked it up. CTV completely fucked it up. I know it's terrible, but that's the way it goes. And that is the end of this video. There'll be more videos come later on.